Welcome to Haltech Elite NSP Training Part 31. In this training module, we're going to be exploring knowing the differences between Lambda, Stoichiometric, and air-fuel ratio. This is often a very confusing topic for getting started with tuning, so we're going to break down how all of this works and very clearly understand the relationship that they're all going to have to each other. Without further wait, let's jump in so we can check this out.
Okay, so let's get started. We're going to be taking a look at understanding the differences between our Lambda reading and a wideband air-fuel reading. We're also going to be taking a look at the effects of programming the proper Stoich ratio for the fuel type that we're dealing with within our Haltech systems. We have to make sure that's correct so that we have the proper fuel and airflow modeling relationship holding true. If we don't, we're going to have all kinds of deviations, a percentage of deviation based on what kind of fuel we're working with and then what kind of fuel has been programmed here to our Haltech Elites. And this is only going to be applicable to mass airflow and speed density volumetric efficiency based fuel and airflow strategies. You'll find if you're dealing with injection time based or fuel flow rate based, it's not going to apply. So let's jump in here and talk about this first topic of Lambda and air fuel and understanding the differences. This is probably one of the most fundamental things as you get started with tuning. You'll see people reference Lambda units. We'll see people talk about and reference air fuel units. What is the difference? Okay, so the best way that I can describe and to kind of break this down is if you're looking at your wideband display and you're finding that your wideband gauge is showing you 14.7 to 1 or 13 to 1 air fuel or 16 to 1 air fuel. That air fuel reading is relative to the petrol gasoline air fuel scale, pure petrol at that. It's not going to have any ethanol blended within the fuel. And what we're going to find is that when the oxygen sensor, whether it's a narrow band or a wideband sensor, in the case of a wideband air fuel display, it'll be a wideband sensor. Every oxygen sensor is going to start off in reading in units of Lambda, and then it converts to the units of the petrol air fuel scale in the case with a wideband display. So when we're looking at our software here and we're taking a look at a O2 Lambda reading or O2 reading, this can be in units of Lambda, units of gasoline or petrol air fuel. It can also be in units of ethanol or units of methanol. Now, when we're talking about and working in units of Lambda, this allows us to essentially translate either a rich or a lean mixture across any different fuel we might be working with, whether it's going to be petrol, ethanol, methanol, propane, hydrogen, the list goes on and on. Any fuel that we're burning in our engine, we'll find that the Lambda is going to allow us to translate what that fuel and airflow relationship is going to be as the engine is having the combustion and burning it, and we're measuring it within our exhaust stream with our oxygen sensor. So the Lambda units are essentially a universal way we can express what that fuel and air relationship is going to be, specifically the burnt fuel mixed with the air in our exhaust stream. So when we're taking a look at units of Lambda, we're going to find that it's easier to deal with that universal scale rather than knowing the individual scales for each different type of fuel. Now this might be a little bit confusing. Let's talk about this real quick. What we're going to do is jump into our Excel spreadsheet. This is found right into our course folder. You can go ahead and open this up. Our NSP course calculator is what I've named this Excel spreadsheet. Now the Stoich tab here is what we want to look at. We're going to be focusing here in the very first, or the second column, I should say here, within this spreadsheet. We're going to see that we have a parameter here called Lambda, and that's going to be in blue. That's what we can actually change. There's petrol, air fuel, ethanol, methanol, propane, methane, and hydrogen. Now what this is doing is translating the equivalent of 1.0 Lambda or stoichiometric. That's where it's going to be the best burn for the fuel that we're dealing with. So it's going to give us the best compromise between fuel economy, emissions output, and engine power output. And we typically want to go in and shoot for 1.0 Lambda at idle and part throttle conditions. Once we get into higher RPM or higher load in RPM, we want to richen up the mixture. We would command a lower Lambda mixture. So what this is doing is allowing us to translate this stoichiometric ratio that we want to target of 1.0 Lambda and translate that relative to the different fuel scales that we'd have to work with. 1.0 Lambda is stoichiometric. It's the equivalent of the petrol air fuel scale, so pure petrol fuel of 14.7 to 1, which is stoichiometric on pure petrol fuel. Ethanol, so this would be pure ethanol, 9 to 1 is the stoichiometric ratio for the equivalent of 1.0 Lambda stoichiometric on ethanol. methanol 6.45, propane 15.67, methane 17.19, and hydrogen.
Thanks for checking out our teaser clip. If you want to see the rest of this video and more than 500 hours of current EFI training we have to offer, make sure you click right here. If you want to go and check out more teaser clips from this training course, click here, and you don't want to miss any of the videos we're going to be releasing on this channel, so make sure you subscribe and click here. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys later.